I'm Cathy Glasson, opinion editor at the Register, and we are here with Democrat Eddie Mauro, who is running for Congress in Iowa's 3rd District. If he wins the June 5th primary, he'll face Republican incumbent David Young in November. Mr. Mauro, thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
In the room with us are Register editors and reporters. Let's go around the room and introduce yourselves, please.
Carol Hunter, executive editor.
Bill Petrosky, reporter.
David Shivers, president.
Okay. And so let's just start by, the way we've started all these meetings, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what makes you qualified to be a member of Congress.
Well, Cathy, really quick, I'm a proud father. I have twins that are 23 years old, Dominic and Mia. I'm also a very proud husband. I've been married for 28 years. The best move I've made so far to my best friend and my most important endorsement to my wife, Sherilyn. I've had a remarkable formation. Started with my parents, who are now 86 and 80 years old. They taught me about sacrifice and generosity and hard work and love. That continued on with a couple of my uncles who you know that have been public servants. Probably most importantly, though, a remarkable woman, Sister Joanne Mauro, who was a nun for 50 years. And she taught me about social justice. She taught me about justice in general. She taught me about acceptance and tolerance and understanding. And she set me off on a path that leads me to where I am today. You see, initially I was a teacher and a coach. Today I make my living in the business world. I took a small business here in Des Moines and I've grown it into an operation that now has 5 offices around the country. We're working on a 6th one as we speak here today. It's allowed me to do some really remarkable things and instill my progressive values at the same time. Through all of that, I've been a Democrat, I've been a Catholic, I've been dedicated to service and advocacy as a champion for those without a voice. And if you get a chance to go really get to know me, you're going to find out that I try to do things in an extraordinary way. So go talk to my principal. He'll tell you that not only was I a teacher, but for years I would take kids out in the morning before school. We would crawl under bridges. We would go into wooded areas. We'd go into abandoned buildings and we would serve meals to the homeless. My baseball teams and football teams, they won games and we won conference championships and state championships. But more importantly, on many Saturdays, we would go out and serve produce around the Catholic worker community. Because of my job today, I'm able to give back in ways I never imagined. I give a lot back in this community here. I'm part of giving back to DMARC, to the YMCA, to the Children's Variety Network, Habitat for Humanity, and many other great organizations that are out there. And I'm also been able to get involved in a project in Africa. I'm part of a team that installs water systems for kids in Africa. In fact, I spent about a month of this campaign in Africa so far, and I got to go back in July, win or lose. Through all of that, I'm a founding member of a community organization you've reported on a lot known as Amos. In 1996, I was part of a group of really powerful and influential spiritual leaders, religious leaders that got that organization kicked off the ground and has done some great work. I was tasked with being its spokesperson, its leader. I would lead at City Hall. I would lead at the State House, Governor's office, our congressional delegation. I did rallies and forums in front of our presidential candidates. I helped strategize and shape legislation and public policy that's impacted thousands of people. And I'm here today because you all deserve to know, and the viewers deserve to know that their kids and their grandkids are going to grow up in the best possible world. I want to help build that world. And that's a world that's built on a progressive and inclusive populism, where the very promise and the very idea of this country is available to everybody, and that's not happening today. The long and short of it, sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's an interesting story. Tell us a little bit more about your business. What is it that you do in your business?
So it's known as a wholesale insurance business, property casualty. Our customers are independent and captive insurance agents all throughout this state, actually around the country. We insure bars, taverns, restaurants. We insure commercial properties. We insure homes and manufactured homes here in Iowa and all of our other offices that we have. And it's been a very rewarding experience for me. I've had a chance to, like I mentioned earlier, instill my progressive values. We were talking about paid family leave and instilling paid family leave before that was really a big thing. We have people who are out taking care of their kids when they're born and taking care of their elderly parents when they need to do that. We have women that lead several of our offices that have the same opportunities, responsibilities, and make the same monies that men do. Really quick, the last thing I'll mention is that during the downturn, I think we set ourselves apart from everybody, and that we didn't lay anybody off. We took pay cuts from the top, and I told our team that we weren't going to do that. We were going to make sure we stuck together through thick and thin, and we did that, and that's why we're better off today because of that.
And how many employees do you have?
I think we're approaching 50 right now. We're interviewing 2 more, I think, as we're speaking here, and I think we'll hire at least 1 this month, and I think we'll probably hire 1 or 2 again next month.
You've never run for office before. You talked about some of your organizing experience, right? So tell us about your campaign experience and your ability to put together a good campaign, good enough to win over an experienced politician in November.
Well, I have run for office before,
Oh, you have?
and it must not have been very memorable.
Sorry.
But that's all right. A couple years ago, I mentioned I've been involved in advocacy forever, and I always knew that one day I wanted to have a seat at the table. And I knew that one day I would run for office. Had to make sure that my family was situated right before I did that. So a couple years ago, I did get involved in a race, and I knew it would be a difficult race in a House district here that's held by a very strong Democrat. But we wanted to go out and play to see if our message resonated, to kind of learn the ropes a little bit, so to speak. We knew we had probably a 30% chance of winning, but that wasn't what the name of that game was. And so what we did, we went out and knocked on doors, we went out and pushed our message out, and we liked the feedback we got. We were close to getting 40 points against a 14-year Democrat incumbent. We felt good about that. The race ended at 9 o'clock and 5 seconds. We knew that. And shortly after that, I was on a plane traveling and heard a podcast with Barack Obama and David Axelrod. And Barack Obama told the same story. He said, I got my clock clean, my very first race at 9 o'clock sharp. I was done. When assessed, though, that my message resonated, and mine did as well. People liked what I had to say. They just said, it's not your turn yet. The person you're trying to take out doesn't deserve to go. And they were right about that. But I knew that I was going to come back another day and run, and we learned some good lessons from that, and we're implementing them now.
Okay. So if you were to be elected to Congress, what would you say is your top priority? If you were I know you have a long list of priorities, but what would you say is number one, the job one?
Well, and there's too many to list. If you're going to make me do job one, the number one priority is money in politics, because that's keeping everything from happening. We need to get into the list of issues that are out there for me, which is health care and Social Security and Medicare and education and the economy and taxes and all the other things that are out there. But if you're going to force me to one, and I hate that question.
Okay, well, so but if you don't have any priority, unless you list a priority, you don't really have any priorities, right? So
well, they're all the same. So I mean, if you know my background, I'm multifaceted and multidimensional. I'm juggling a lot of hats, and I'm capable of doing that.
We'll talk about a lot of issues, but what do you want to do about money in politics?
We need to get it out. It's keeping good things from happening in this country. Whether that be health care, whether that be taking care of our seniors when it comes to Social Security, Medicare, whether it takes gun safety, taking care of our climate and the challenges with our climate that are in front of us. You name it, special interest and money are keeping us from really taking America forward to where it needs to be.
And how do you think you can get money out? I mean, what's the method for that?
Well, I think the method is we need to get real principled leaders that want to push back against Citizens United and codify into law the amounts of money we can take and where that money should come from. We're no longer a country of one vote per person anymore. Money has thousands of extra votes than the average citizen on the street.
Could you put a little more detail to that?
More detail to that?
Yeah.
In
How
what way?
exactly would you do it? What bills would you introduce? Are you talking constitutional amendment against Citizens United? A little more.
Yeah, well, I think we need some campaign finance reform legislation at the federal level. That would limit the amounts of money that people could put in, that corporations could put in. I'll agree that corporations might be people too, but there should be a limit of how much corporations could put in and the voice that they should have, and their voice shouldn't outweigh the single mom raising 2 kids, and trying to make ends meet. And right now it does. She has no voice. That teacher out there right now has no voice. Our labor folks don't have any voices. So we need to find a way to balance that out.
Are you putting any of those principles to work in your own campaign? In other words, some candidates say, well, we're against corporate money, so we're not taking any corporate money, we're not taking any money from PACs or whatever.
Yeah, I haven't taken any money from corporations that I'm aware of. I'm getting donations from individuals from $5 to the maximum limit that we're allowed, that's allowed. We haven't talked to any PAC folks or any corporate money as of today.
Okay. Let's talk about healthcare. It's impacting the state of Iowa quite a bit. What do you think is the path forward on just on healthcare in general?
Well, the main objective for healthcare needs to be that we get everybody coverage, and it needs to be affordable for them and accessible, and that's elusive for us today because it's not affordable. There's lots of ways that we can get there. Out in Congress right now, there's a couple pieces of legislation, both in the House and the Senate, that are single-payer health care type of legislation. And I can support something like that. I'm not sure that's viable. And if not, we better have other strategies that we can get our arms around. So I think we need to go reinforce and strengthen Obamacare and the ACA, which has kind of set us down this pathway anywhere, heroic what President Obama and that Congress did. So we need to go strengthen that. We need to make sure that we're funding fully our private exchanges, and we're doing a bad job of that today. Mr. Trump's trying to keep that from happening. We need to probably add a public option for those that can't get health care. So we need a private and public initiative if we can't go to single payer and have a full universal health care, which some people are advocating for. We at a minimum need to have a public option so people that can't get care, and there's a lot of them out there, a lot of small business owners, single proprietors, a lot of folks that don't qualify, especially in a state like Iowa, where Governor Branstad and Ms. Reynolds have worked hard to make it tougher. Here in this state, more than any others, where some good Republicans governors did a good job of trying to bring some competition and variety to their state. So there's a lot we can be doing. We need to talk about mental health in our plans. We need to talk about drug addiction in our plans, because those are woefully inadequate in our plans today. We need to make sure it's affordable. I'm employing close to 50 people, and I ensure a majority of them, our deductibles are out of line, our coverages are too thin. And we need to do some things to make that better. And we have the ability to do that.
You mentioned single payer as being acceptable to you, but you don't think it may not be feasible. Why not?
Well, I don't know if it's going to get the support. You have to have 60 votes in the Senate that are going to agree to that. I don't think you have that right now. You're going to need to have a Democrat president for certain, and we don't have that right now.
Okay, so politically feasible, but not policy-wise. That you think it could work. It's just not maybe not politically viable at this point.
Yeah, it's not practical at this point to be something out there. I think there's some good elements in a single-payer system that we need to vet out and argue and see if they're beneficial for us. And if they are, then we need to implement them.
You mentioned mental health and drug addiction. What do you see as the federal role for that? What more should the federal government be doing?
At the federal level, we need to, on mental health, doing whatever we can to provide funding in any way the federal government has the opportunities to do that. We need to make sure that in the health care legislation that we do try to revamp or improve upon, that we make sure there's coverages for mental health conditions and treatments that are out there. Relative to addictions and drugs, we need to decriminalize a lot of the drug issues that are out there. Those are diseases out there. I've seen them as a teacher. I've seen them as a coach firsthand. And those are diseases, and we keep putting people with diseases in prison, and that's not the answer. We need to work on strengthening then our rehabilitation programs, especially for heroin, for methamphetamine. Those are not 30-day outpatient programs. Those are long, robust programs to get people healthy again. So those are a couple things that we could do for both mental health and on the drug addiction side.
Decriminalization means different things to different people sometimes. What would you decriminalize, and for whom? Are we talking about just the users? Are we also talking about the sellers?
No, just the users. Yep, we're putting people in prison that have no intent to sell or make money or to harm other people, and we're doing that for heroin and meth and other drugs that are out there.
Okay, so all of the not just marijuana, but you go all the way up to heroin.
Look, anybody that's not out there trying to sell and harm other people. we need to take a good look at what putting them in prison is going to do for us. Anybody that's out there selling and harming other people, then they need to suffer the full consequences of the law.
And what do you put in place then of prison as far as treatment options, or are we creating a federally funded drug court system, or how do you make that work?
Well, you're looking at treatment, the treatment process. That's going to be private and public initiatives again, and the ways that we can fund that on private and public opportunities, using again our healthcare system and the coverages that are afforded to people. What I'm telling you right now is that we're woefully inadequate in treating people. And to try to treat somebody and put them back on the street is not going to solve the problem. What we're doing is not solving the problem. We have people that overdose repeatedly until the time they eventually die. And we need to look at how we're going to do a better job of that.
Okay. Let's talk about immigration. It's a big issue in Iowa right now with the raid in Mount Pleasant. What does comprehensive immigration reform mean to you? What would it look like? Something that you could vote for?
Well, immigration is one of that initial Amos issues that we kickstarted back in 2000 or so. So we were on the forefront of talking about the DREAM Act at the State House and driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants. I got to tell you, I think immigration is a red herring in this country. It's been used for political expediency more than anything. And we need to stop doing that. I'm running for a lot of reasons, and one is we need to stop tricking and conning people and creating anger over things that aren't really out there.
Even before this, before the Trump administration, before the idea that we're demonizing people, the immigration system was broken. We had people waiting in line for years and years and years to get into the country legally. How do you take that broken immigration system, which now has all of the emotion of this political issue that you've mentioned? How do you break through that to get to something that actually works?
Right. Well, and to your point, that rhetoric has been going on for a long time, long before Mr. Trump. He's just kind of taken it to a whole new level. But how do we make something that works? We need comprehensive immigration reform. We need to recognize, three things: that it's economically it's the right thing to do. That God commands it of us, and that it is morally the right thing to do. That we take care of the people that are in this country that have been out working hard, whether it's our dreamers or others that are here that are undocumented today. Do we find a pathway to citizenship for them if they have, other than them coming to this country or overstaying a visa or doing something that's kept them in this country? If that's their only fault right now, and they've been working in this country, they've been raising families in this country, they've been contributing to this country, we need to find a way that they can stay in this country. We need those folks in this country. So we need to take care of both our DACA kids and those that are undocumented right now.
So you're fully supportive of a path to citizenship?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is there some of the discussion about path to citizenship includes a process, so including possibly paying fines, and making sure the person has not committed any additional crimes while in the United States, maybe going through some sort of process to make sure they have jobs, etc. So would you put some of those conditions on becoming a citizen?
No, there have to be conditions, and there's folks out there that are doing things that wouldn't allow them to stay in this country, whether they're out committing crimes now or doing things that wouldn't be acceptable for a citizen. Would be the same, and then they should probably have to go back and reapply or try again. So there has to be conditions that are involved with that. We want people that again are otherwise good citizens, that could be good citizens in this country. Then we want to allow them to stay in this country because they're integral to our country.
Do you balance that then with additional border security? If you have a process where anybody in the country who's undocumented has a chance to become a citizen, don't you then, without more border security, invite a huge uptick in illegal immigration?
Well, I think another red herring. I don't think anybody that's in the Democratic Party is looking for us to not have secure borders, and that's being used an awful lot. But we can have the right balance of having secure borders, and I think our borders are fairly secure right now. Can we continue to be diligent and look at what we're implementing there and enhance them? We can. That does not include a border wall. No wall is going to be tall enough or thick enough or deep enough to keep people that really want to have a better life for their kids, from getting here. So we need to find other mechanisms that we're going to keep bad people out of this country or capture bad people from coming into this country, and then find ways that we can let people that want to come into this country, that we can make it a little bit easier for them so they don't think they have to come in through illegal means.
The other part of this is all very complex discussion, but another aspect of the immigration discussion is to what extent you're bringing people into the country only because they have the skills that Americans don't have for jobs, or are you bringing in a lot of unskilled workers who are necessary, for example, for agriculture, other work, but that those are jobs that Americans potentially could be doing?
Well, I think you do it for both. And if you're seeing what's going on in the Congress right now, there's a group of Republicans that are starting to push back. And those Republicans that are from Florida, they're from Texas, they're from California, because they know the necessity of having immigrants in their communities today. So we have the capabilities, we have the capacity to have people in this country and have more people come to this country. It's not unlimited. There's a limit to that. We need to make sure that it's not all about race. I tell people an awful lot. If Leif Erikson would have settled in Mexico, and Mexico was a blonde, blue-eyed, white-skinned country today, we wouldn't be having this conversation today.
Would you make changes in NAFTA?
Well, let's first say that I think trade is a red herring. I think trade has been good for this state, and NAFTA in particular has been pretty good for this state, our agriculture economy, and all the residual effects of that. Is NAFTA perfect? It's 20 plus years old. It needs to be revisited. There's some things we need to do with NAFTA and trade in general. You see our trade agreements, for the most part, are tilted too much towards corporations. And I think our trade discussion needs to first take into account our consumers, our laborers, our hardworking Americans, and those people that are working in our community first. And right now the scales are tilted way against their favor. What could we be doing about NAFTA? Would I change NAFTA? I guess the long answer to your question, yes, or should have been the short answer. You want to know what I would change in NAFTA? I think that we need to get rid of the arbitration courts that allow corporations to get special favors outside of this country that they won't get inside this country, that allows them and encourages them then to open up camp in other countries and move jobs out of this country. I think that we need to take a look at how we're taxing the monies that are made from those people that have corporations in Bermuda or in Switzerland or somewhere else. I think we should tax money. We should be taxing where those products are sold, and not where somebody's filing their taxes. I think there's a lot of good things we can do with NAFTA. We need to look at the technology capabilities we have in the 21st century, and how can we move more things using technology today, and what rules and regulations can we put in place, and that could be bolted on to NAFTA, the NAFTA agreement, and other agreements that are out there. To get us in line with the 21st century. So there's a lot of things we can do to improve NAFTA. Most importantly, making sure that we're thinking more about the people that really need it, hardworking Americans and the hardworking consumers that are out there.
The Farm Bill is coming up in the House maybe today. There have been concerns about cuts to SNAP, concerns in that bill about cuts to the conservation programs. Where would you like to see if you were in Congress right now, what would you be calling for when it comes to the Farm Bill?
Well, you just covered them for me, thanks. We want to make sure that we're reinvesting in the SNAP program, and there's no reason for us to reduce that SNAP program. We need to talk about the CRP, the Conservation Reserve Program. We need to expand that. We need to add more acres. In Iowa today, I'm very nervous about our farm economy today. It's been going south for a number of years. I'm out here running around this district, and there's a lot of nervous farmers out there. So to expand the CRP, to pay farmers to expand then our habitats and our wetlands and our grasses, and that's good for our environment as well, right? So we're killing lots of birds with one stone by expanding the CRP. We need to make sure that we are funding then and looking at our state universities that are involved in agriculture as well, because I'm also worried about this state on how heavy we are into two product lines, corn and soybeans, and I worry about that future and what we're going to do to diversify. And I've been in that world. I ran a business where we had one product line, and then I made it a point to make sure we diversified just because that day might come. So there's lots of things we can be doing within our Farm Bill. We need to also look at how our crop insurance is tied to our Farm Bill, making sure we're giving farmers an opportunity to plant cover crops, not restricting the planting and the harvesting of cover crops and creating punishment for them if they do so, and jeopardizing their crop insurance coverage if they so need it. So a handful of things that we need to be doing in the Farm Bill.
I could go either to environment or rural economy. Let's start with environment. What would you say is what should be the priority for the federal government when it comes to environmental protection? And where do you draw the line between the role of the federal government and the role of the state?
Well, let's first say that there's a lot of issues out there that are important to people. We've talked about several. We're going to talk about several more. But I would argue probably the most important issue that gets the least amount of play is climate change. Again, we got a beautiful day here on May 15th, and people are going to go out there and they just don't sense it. But I've seen it firsthand, and I've seen it because of my property insurance world. I'm seeing a huge uptick in claims, storm claims, fire claims in California. We're seeing in our rural communities the frequency and severity of rain that's impacting our soils. I've seen it in Africa when I've been over there, over this course of this past year. There's people over there are very concerned about climate change and the refugee crisis that's creating, both in Syria, that's leading into. So there's a lot of issues out there, and we just don't sense it, right? We're trying to grind through our day. We're worried about our son or daughter that's dealing with an addiction issue or a mental health issue, or making sure we're putting bread on our table today. But this is an issue out there for everybody that we need to take a stronger look at. We need to report on it more. We need to speak about it more. I want to be in the forefront of that conversation. So what do we do with that? We need to make sure that we're fighting to become 100% renewable as soon as possible. We need to find ways that we can pull back the emissions that are out of our environment right now. We need to look at the overshoot situation that we have and try to make sure our ecological systems, whether that be in our oceans and waterways, or that be in our habitat systems, that we're trying to rehabilitate them so that they be strong for us. And those are all win-wins for us. Those create thousands, tens of thousands of green energy jobs for this country, for this state. We're a leader in wind energy. We need to go be leaders in other ways and expand upon that. And it's not enough just to be a kind of a leader in wind energy. There's much more we can do, and that'll be good for our rural economy. We'll circle back to that since you want to talk about that. But there's so many things that we can be doing to improve our climate, and then that'll be part of our environmental challenges too.
One of the issues that was rubbing people the wrong way in rural Iowa, and may have contributed to Donald Trump's victory, was the waters of the U.S. People felt like the federal government was overreaching its bounds and taking too much of a liberty on deciding what they can control on people's farms. How do you view that type of regulation, and what do you say to people in rural Iowa who are afraid that more environmental protection means that they have fewer property rights?
Right. First of all, I understand their concern, right? Because they've been sold that if you have a little puddle in your property there, that you are subject to the rules and regulations, and I think that was overstated, quite honestly. At the same time, we have farmers out there that are really interested in doing the right thing, and I'm seeing them all throughout this district. There are people that want to make sure that they're conserving their soil. They want to make sure that the chemicals that they're using are not getting into our waterways. There's a lot of them out there. I think it's part of the political world is we create divides. That's what we do, because that creates conversation that helps people make money and that helps us get elected. And I think we have more in common between urban, suburban, and rural Iowa than we think. And we need to get together and talk about this issue, and we need to figure out how we can help support farmers to do the right thing. What will, part of the Farm Bill should be part about this. Some things we're doing at the state level as well should be part about that. There needs to be financial assistance that goes along with this, as long as good encouragement, and then there needs to be some oversight and regulation. I think we can do that together. It's one of the reasons you need to be endorsing me. I think there's some things that I can do that are really special out there, and that is bringing people together that are divided. And we got some people that are divided on this issue right now.
Yeah, this district, of course, has the biggest urban area of the state, but it also is most of the counties are very rural. What are you telling people in rural Iowa about how you can help revitalize their communities, and what experience do you have in working with and talking with farmers?
Well, my mom came from a farm, so her father lost his farm in the Great Depression. Her sister then lives on a farm all of her life, and since handed off to her nephew, now my first cousin. So I've spent a lot of years up in Carroll County, summers up there working on the farm, and getting a chance to visit with farmers. I've coached a lot of and taught a lot of people that are still farmers today, and get a chance to have conversations with farmers. I'm not going to lie to you, I don't know every in and out about farm. I know my way around a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet, and I know that we're all interested in the same thing. We want to make sure that our farmers can make a living, because we need to keep them there. We like to keep, especially our small farmers, out there. We need our small independent farmers to stay out there and not just let corporate farms take over this whole state. So the conversations are out there. Is that what I do understand, I want to help with. What I don't understand, I'm going to go learn, and I'm going to stand along your side, because we need those rural communities. That's the backbone of this state. And in whether that's Red Oak or Clarinda or Creston or Mount Ayr, Glenwood, Atlantic, all the places that I've been, all the places I do business, by the way. I have customers in all those areas. We want to make sure they remain vibrant and thriving. We already talked about environmental climate initiatives we can be doing to take back in that area. The CRP would bring back opportunities for tourism and hunting and fishing in a lot of those areas. There's lots of things that we can do to be forward thinking. That's what I think progressivism is all about. And I don't think we're seeing forward thinking ideas either at the state or the federal level right now for our rural communities.
What should USDA be doing in rural communities in Iowa that they're not doing now or not doing enough of?
Well, again, I think it all links back to the Farm Bill and what we can do to make sure we keep that Farm Bill strong and vibrant, that we expand the SNAP program, because that's what our farmers are going to need as well. Not just people that need it here, that need the food and the benefit of getting the food, but also folks that are going to grow that food for us. Again, I think we already talked about the USDA and what they can do, and making sure they're working on diversification programs. What the USDA has done out in those areas to make sure we're bringing clean drinking water to people. So there's lots we can do.
You're an educator. What is the role of federal government in education, and what would you like to see them stop doing?
I think the first role should be to dismiss Ms. DeVos. I think she's a train wreck for education. I think let me go back and say I'm a product of public and private schools. I taught in public and private schools. There's a role for both of them to play. But until we've committed, both at the state and federal level, 150% to our public school kids and our public school teachers and our public schools, then we shouldn't be doing much for our private schools. And once we've done that, then we can have a conversation about what we can be doing with our private schools. And that it goes back to what we need to be doing in our rural communities. So those are the cultural centers of our rural communities, and we're putting them in jeopardy. Good Republicans in this state are putting them in jeopardy by talking about school choice. There is no choice in those rural communities. There are no charter schools or private schools in Clarinda and Red Oak that I've seen anyway, or Creston or Shenandoah or all the other places that I've been. So what they're doing is putting their own schools in jeopardy. They're one of their best employers are putting that in jeopardy. And that could be the demise of rural Iowa, and I'm not sure why they want to do that. So support public schools, back to what we could do at the federal level. Whatever we can do from a funding mechanism for our public schools, we need to make sure we're doing. Whatever we can do to put together good teacher training programs and working at the state level, which is something that I do. I don't want to be a person in the halls of Congress. I want to go collaborate with what we got going on at the state level. I want to go talk to teachers and see what we need to do that's going to make them better teachers and help our kids in our future. Our most important resource is our kids, right? And we're playing political football with them. We've been doing it for way too long, and we need to stop doing that. We need to take a look at what we can do to incentivize young males, especially young males of color, African Americans and Latinos, to go teach at the elementary school level, so we can stop some cycles of poverty and things that are out there that we can't seem to get our arms around. We need to talk about teacher outcomes. I was part of that. I've seen good teachers be punished because they didn't hit a benchmark, and it's an unrealistic benchmark. We've had principals lose their jobs because they didn't hit a benchmark, an unrealistic benchmark. We need to take a look at how we really measure success in education, and it's not because we make everybody read at a certain level or get a certain test score. In my opinion, it's about growth. How much can I make a kid grow? I thought I was a pretty good teacher. I thought I was a pretty good coach. But some of that was because of the type of kids that I had that came into my classroom and onto my ball field, right? There were teachers out there that were 10 times better than me. Coaches 10 times better than me, then they get the same results because they were dealing with different kids. They had kids that were coming that were hungry. We had kids that were coming that were the breadwinners in their house, that were really the parent in their house because mom was in prison and dad was AWOL. So we need to take a look at how we really measure a success in education, both at the federal and state level, so we can put our kids and our teachers and our schools in the best position for success.
Should there be federal standards for education when it comes to academics, or should those be state and local decisions? I mean, is it the role of the federal government to say, okay, we need to have these minimum standards in every school in the country?
I think it's a joint effort. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a floor and a benchmark that we want to aim for, and then we do that as a country. Because we want people that are going to grow up in this country, they're going to end up in California and Silicon Valley and creating the next big thing for us, and they can come from Iowa. So we want to make sure Iowa has kind of a foundation, the same foundation of fundamentals that we might ask out of Minnesota or Illinois. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We then should be able to go to our states and then to our local municipalities and talk to teachers as well of what's best. And make sure we come up with something that works for everybody. The problem is right now all this comes down from the top, and as I talk to teachers, and I know a lot of them because I taught for a long time, they don't have a say at the table, and they just like to have a say. They like to be heard, and they're not being heard right now. And I understand them. I get it. And again, that's another reason why you endorse a person like me.
What about higher education? What would you say is the federal government role? What more should the federal government, or less, should the federal government be doing?
I think the federal government should be making every effort to expand and maintain any Pell Grant or other national grants that are out there. And right now, the Trump administration and Mr. Voss want to pull back on those. I think after we just gave a $1.5 trillion tax break to the richest people in this country, that we need to stop chasing our children over student loan debt, right? We're out chasing people. We're out chasing our kids for their student loans, and we're profiting off our kids on student loans. So we need to go work on making sure that we're not profiting, and we're working with those kids that went out and worked hard. We've made it harder on them, both at the state and the federal level. We've made it harder on them to get an education they want to get, they so desperately deserve to get. And now they have this debt, and we need to figure out ways that we can restructure debt, put them in jobs or positions where maybe we can do some debt forgiveness because they're going to certain places in this country where they're needed, or doing certain things where they're needed. So initially, a couple of things that we could do at the college level. I want to go work with at the state level as well. At how do we make this more affordable? What we're doing, and again, we're being tricked and conned into this. We're out passing tax breaks again in this state, just like we've done at the federal level. And our universities have no choice but then to raise prices. That's a tax. That's a backwards tax. That's a backroom tax that they've done to, again, hardworking parents and those kids, that now are paying 10, 15, 20%, 30% more than they would have paid 10 or 15 years ago. So when they talk about we want to cut taxes, they're not cutting taxes. They've raised taxes on hardworking Iowans in this state, and we're doing it around the country, through these tax breaks and giveaways. Sorry, let me start on that. Gets me kind of fired up.
We've heard some Democratic candidates this cycle running for various offices talking about free college or college or tuition free, maybe at the community college level or even all the way up to four-year colleges and universities. Is that an idea that you think would work?
I think anybody that wants to go to college should be able to go, and money should not be a hindrance. I'll say that first. There's a lot of people that don't go because they don't have the money, and they could be, again, some of our next great leaders in this country, and we depress them because of money. I also do think that if people that can pay, then they should pay some. And so if they could pay $25 a month to go, they should pay the $25 a month. If they could pay $100, they pay $100. If they can pay the full way, they can pay the full way. I think if you invest in your education, you get more out of it. And I've always believed that. So if they can pay a little bit, they pay a little bit. If they can't pay any, they don't pay any. At the end of the day, anybody that wants to go to college should be able to go to college. And then the half of the kids that aren't going to go to college, don't want to go to college, don't think they need to go to college, and there's a lot of them, we need to make sure we have avenues for them to be successful. Apprenticeship programs, vocational programs, working with, I've been talking to labor leaders here for months. They're dying for more kids to come in and be trained and go out and work real meaningful, fulfilling jobs where they can reach the American dream. So we need to make every effort, and that's both in urban, suburban, and in our rural settings.
The way Hillary Clinton put it, maybe even in this room or maybe downstairs, was that she didn't want to pay for Donald Trump's kids to go to college.
I don't want to go. That's not important. I want to make sure that the people that want to go, that can't afford to go, we need to make sure they get a chance to go. And those that can pay a little bit should pay a little bit.
I want to make sure I'm not shutting out people who have questions.
Just a couple general questions. Should you win, which committees would you want to serve on?
I'm very interested in education. It's not a very strong committee right now, and I think we need to go make it stronger. I'm interested in appropriations, ways and means, anything that we can talk about money. I manage and handle lots of premium, lots of aggregate around this country. I think I have a good sense of what we need to be doing with our tax plan, with wages, improving wages. We haven't got to that yet. Those would be a couple that I think I'd be strong on many of them, quite honestly. There'll be a few that I would lobby for initially.
And then, you would be, if you win, you'd be a member of a large body, which may or may not be controlled by Democrats. How would you stand out on a lot of these issues? You may find some agreements with other folks. How would you really, we would say, that's the guy from Iowa.
Right, and you're going to say that a lot. Because you get out and you keep speaking. You keep speaking up, you keep speaking out. You keep trying to find ways to get over hurdles that are thrown out in front of you. And if you've looked at my background and seen the type of work I do, and I'm a workaholic by trade, so you won't see a guy that's going to stop. And we'll keep stopping and knocking on doors because the people here are depending on me. And I won't let them down. I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry. I didn't catch your name, ma'am.
I'm Rachel Stastenberger. I'm the political editor.
Hi, Rachel.
You mentioned wages. What is your stance on federal minimum wage?
I think the best, a handful of things. I think that we shouldn't be aiming for a minimum wage. We should be trying to uplift people so they're making way more than the minimum wage. I think the answer for me is a earned income tax credit. I think that we implement an earned income tax credit. We expand upon that. We have that now, so to speak, right? When we file our taxes, we might get an earned income tax credit. It's a little bit of money. I think it's something that should be part of every one of our paychecks. So somebody that's only making $10, $12 an hour gets an earned income tax credit in their paycheck every pay period. So they're going to get a total income of $36,000 to $40,000 a year. And that's much greater than the $15 minimum wage that people are throwing out there. We have the ability to do that. We have the capacity to do that. That allows us then to make sure that everybody's making a livable income. And they don't have to have 2 jobs or 2.5 jobs or more than that. That allows them then to take that extra time they have to take care of their family. That then gives them extra time then to go improve their skills so they can move from $10 to $12. And then their tax credit comes down. And then maybe they move to 14 or 15 and their tax credit comes down. And they move to $20 and they don't need their tax credit anymore, right? And that's what we all are hoping for. The people don't need to have those mechanisms to keep. That will help support our small business. I worry about some of our small businesses in some of those small communities, are real small businesses, and what we can do to them. by mandating a $15 minimum wage. I think that could be devastating for some small businesses, actually make some close, which makes people lose jobs, which I think would be counterproductive. So we need to have a really good conversation and debate about it. I'm looking forward to having that, and we can find a pathway forward.
Have you penciled out cost figure on that earned income credit?
$640 million I've seen estimates that would be there for us, and if we go take a good look at the tax bill that we just passed, there's way more than that to take care of everything I've talked about today, and then some.
If I take a look at the tax bill, I'm sorry, do you mean roll back some of the tax cuts that have been passed?
I think that it's not necessarily the tax cuts that were bad in this thing, Cathy. It's that we didn't do anything to really do tax reform. In the 1980s, with Bill Bradley and Ronald Reagan and a good collaborative effort, good bipartisan effort, we pulled some rates down, but we also got rid of every loophole that was out there. And over the last 30 years, we've let all those loopholes sneak their way back in under Democrat and Republican leadership. All those loopholes came back.
What are some examples of those?
We're allowing, and Donald Trump will campaign on this hard, we're still allowing Wall Street to get away with the carried interest deduction that they have out there. And he shouted out loud from the rooftops that he was going to get rid of that. So there's lots of those loopholes that have come back in like that, that allow people, not only did they get a tax break at the top, but their effective tax rate is even much better than what it should have been. And so there's lots of money on the table, and there's lots of people, and I know lots of folks that do very well, and we want to applaud them. There's some risk takers and innovators out there that have done some things for this country and employ a lot of people, and we want to support them. But a lot of them also say, I'm not paying my fair share, and I'm not opposed to paying my fair share. And we need to tell those people that right now are opposed to paying their fair share that it's about time you start paying your fair share. We have an imbalance right now, again, and we have the folks at the top that are doing really well and folks in the bottom, and we keep making that out of whack, and we need to pull that back together.
I jumped in on you, Carolyn.
You
How
just
dare you do that.
cited a couple of examples where I think you do differentiate yourself from the two other people running in the Democratic primary, but could you tick off some other examples where you think your policy stances really set you apart from the two others?
I'm not sure which ones are different, other than maybe the minimum wage that Pete advocates for. I'm not sure.
You specifically don't support a $15 an hour minimum wage.
I support an earned income tax credit. I think that's the pathway forward.
Instead of.
I think we make more money. I think we make more money. I think the people that need the money make more money with an earned income tax credit, and we keep small businesses from going out of business and forcing people into the unemployment line. Again, I'd like to have a debate about that. I need to see some more data. The economists I've talked to, and there's some pretty sharp ones out there, I think this is the better pathway forward.
And just a quick question on the earned income tax credit. That would basically change the cost to the government to pay back these taxes. There may be benefits in a minimum wage. Essentially, the businesses are paying more to help improve wages. Is that a concern? Because the government would lose the income tax.
But not really. How are we losing the income tax?
Because it costs, if you lower the taxes through an earned income tax credit, it means that you are no longer paying those taxes.
Well, we're elevating incomes, so it'll be taxable income at the same rate that they're paying. We're actually getting some of those corporations. You know, the corporations that we're most interested in are the corporations that pay minimum wage that can pay a bigger wage, right? The McDonald corporations, those types of corporations, they should be paying a larger wage. I'm worried about the sole proprietor that does a daycare down in Creston, Iowa, that if we forced him into that he's got to close his daycare. Or he's got to go raise weights, which is just another backward way of raising taxes on people to make that work.
Gun violence, again, from your perspective as an educator, are there things that, do you see any sort of middle ground here that our policymakers are missing as they're talking about protecting the Second Amendment versus keeping kids safe in school?
Well, it's something that we do well in politics today. We create division. And I was in Mount Air talking to the government class last week or so. in a mixed class. And I'm telling them that we can respect and support the Second Amendment and also improve our gun safety in this country. It's not an either or. It's not one against the other. And again, we're allowing pundits and politicians and the gun lobby to do that to us and create division that doesn't need to be there. Justice Antonin Scalia said very eloquently in a famous court opinion that the Second Amendment does have limits, and we need to find out what they are. And as I'm running around this district and I'm talking to gun owners, I own a paintball gun, I don't know if that counts or not, but as I talk to gun owners, every single one of them says, I'm okay with background checks. I'm okay with us funding the CDC to find out how we can reduce the gun violence. It's an epidemic in this country today, especially when the mass shootings are taking place. I'm in favor of taking a look at the type of weapons that are allowed to be sold in our communities today, that are in our neighborhoods. I've had several gun owners say, I'm not sure that what I'm using, what I was able to use when I was in Afghanistan or Iraq or Vietnam is a tool or a weapon that I should have in my neighborhoods or my community. I've had people say we should close the loophole, and these are all gun owners. I've yet to have a gun owner say that I'm against any of those things. So it just makes sense, but we're creating, again, that division, and again, a lot of it has to do with money. The money in politics is keeping a guy like David Young from even looking at the other side of this issue. So I guess a long answer to your question.
And to be clear, though, you're in favor of all those things you mentioned.
Absolutely.
And would you look at, for example, liability for gun manufacturers when it comes to gun safety? They could be installing, for example, trigger locks, that kind of thing.
I think that we can explore liability for manufacturers. I think we can explore liability for gun owners where guns end up in the wrong hands of folks. I think those are conversations that we need to have so that we can, and there's lots of ways we can improve gun safety in this country, and it has to do with not just the access and availability of guns. But we also need to go talk about mental health in a fuller way. We need to go talk about education in a fuller way. We need to talk about the economy in a fuller way. Because it's not just the mass shootings that gets all of our attention. Right, and that got these young kids fired up, and God bless those young kids. Hope they keep screaming from the rooftops. But it's the everyday tragedy that's out there. It's the suicide in rural Iowa. It's the accidental shooting that takes place. It's the domestic violence issue that takes place. There's a lot of gun violence that goes under the radar because we've been desensitized to it. It's been happening so long.
You mentioned a couple times that you're Catholic. Where do you draw the line between, let me ask it another way, how do you define religious liberty in this country, and where is the line between, allowing people to practice as they see fit versus the government getting in and saying, okay, no, you have to respect everybody's civil rights? Where's the line there?
Again, I think another red herring that we create a division with. I pray when I want. I pray where I want. I have no problem living the faith the way I want to live my faith. At the same time, I also know that my faith should not infringe upon somebody else's constitutional right. We have a separation for a reason. And the reason is if my faith conflicts with your right, your constitutional right, then your constitutional right trumps. Sorry about the pun there.
Some of these really controversial cases involve religious organizations like the Sisters of the Poor. Should they have to fund contraceptive insurance? Is that where do you find the balance between religious organizations that want to keep their faith and their employees who may or may not share that?
You find solutions. So first of all, for religious institutions that wouldn't want to give contraception, we need a public option. And then we can opt out of the employer plan. I go get my own public option, and I can get my contraception because that should be available in the public option.
And also, we continue to have discussions about bakeries or wedding providers who don't want to have gay couples as their customers. Is that discrimination, or is that allowing a business owner to exercise their faith as they see fit.
Again, I think that if it's something that would impede the constitutional right of another person, then you shouldn't be able to do that. So you have a gay couple that comes in to get a cake, and we want to deny them. So on the night of that wedding, the gay couple gets in a tragic accident, and they end up in the ER. And the ER attending also doesn't believe in gay marriage. So is he not going to take care of that gay couple when they come in? So no, I think it's an overblown issue out there, and we should take care of them, whether it be in the ER or helping them bake their cake.
Iowa is making national news with its fetal heartbeat bill. It's going to the court. Where do you stand on abortion rights and federal money going to fund Planned Parenthood?
Let me first say that I believe in a woman's right to choose and control her own destiny. And for a guy to take away that right is dumbfounding that men, for some reason, want to argue about that. I think the better pathway forward, and we've been beating this horse for way too long, and again, creating divide. I think that we should give women a reason to choose life and not force them to choose life. I think if we really want to talk about the sanctity of life and really be pro-life, then we should be talking about not just the birth event. We should be talking about how we're going to educate, clothe, feed, nurture those children and those families, so that a woman has a good reason to choose life. And if we did that, I think we could reduce abortions, which people would like to do. But we don't do it by forcing them, because that's not going to work. No matter what we do, we can bring this down to the moment the sperm and the egg hit each other. People of money are going to go find a way to take care of that if they so choose. People without money are going to find drastic ways and unsafe ways to remedy that if they so choose. I think we need to go figure this out on a loving way, so that we give people the opportunity to make an informed decision and give them reasons to choose life if they so choose.
Tell us about a time when you had to make an unpopular decision. You knew it was going to be unpopular, but you did it because you thought it was the right thing to do.
We don't have enough time for that.
Just one time.
You do. I mean, you do that. I mean, as a teacher and a coach, as a parent, I mean, you're doing that all the time. So I mentioned earlier on, we were in a downturn in the economy in 2007 and 2008. Revenues are down for everybody. We insure a lot of contractors. Contractors are going out of business. We're losing business. And people are being laid off all around this community, around this country. And I went and told my guys that I'm not laying anybody off. We're going to take a pay cut. And they came in and they said, you know what, it's time to lay people off. Look, everybody else is laying people off, Eddie. Let's go lay a few people off. And I said, we're not doing that. And it was horribly unpopular in my office. But I stuck to my guns, and we're much better off for it.
Can you explain a little bit more about your office? If it was unpopular to say we're going to keep employing people during a recession?
Well, they're looking at their payroll going down, right? They said, well, why are you cutting our salaries? Well, we should do what everybody else is doing. Let's lay a couple people off. People being laid off. There's no reason for us not to lay off a couple people. And again, I push back to say I'm not doing that. We'll grind through this. We'll get better together. We work through the highs and the lows, and we've done that. And now we're on a high because of that leadership.
Are there areas where you would fully expect to disagree with your Democratic leadership on issues, and what do you do in that case?
Well, I do expect that, yes.
In particular, do you know of anything in particular where you would predict that you would disagree?
So a few things. I disagree with the rhetoric sometimes that we use as a party. I think we sometimes drag ourselves down into the mud with the other party and with pundits that are out there, because we need to be in that same game. I disagreed a little bit with the most recent spending bill. I know it did some good things for hardworking Iowans and Americans, but I think we oversold ourselves on that one. I disagreed.
How so?
I think we put too much money in the military. I think that there's too many. We gave too many concessions in that we didn't need to give. I think what we did with the DACA opportunity that we had not too long ago, where the government was shut down, I think we should have held our ground, and that could have been unpopular. That could have been grossly unpopular, but that would have been the right thing to do. We should have solved this issue then. We should not have opened the government until we got Republicans and Mr. Trump around the table to solve this DACA issue. Those are a couple of areas anyway that.
Okay, very good. And just to wrap up, why should the Des Moines, you mentioned a couple of reasons why the Des Moines Register should endorse you. You've got about a minute left. Just sum up and tell us.
Can't do that in a minute.
Yeah.
I think you endorse me, first of all, because if you don't, my mother's going to cancel her subscription. A lot of pressure on you guys. I think you endorse me because I'm a different kind of candidate. I am a change agent that's here. I'm a person that's going to bring a new perspective. I haven't been sheltered in politics and government like the other folks that are here. I've been out on the street. I get it. I get what's going on out there. I've told you I've been out there sloshing through the mud to take care of the homeless. I've been out sweating and bleeding to bring safe drinking water to kids. I've been counseling folks dealing with mental health issues and addiction issues and choice issues. In the past month, I've consoled people that have buried loved ones that lost their battle to depression and suicide or opioid overdose. I get what's going on the street better than anybody that's out there. I think you endorse me because I bring hope to this community. I'm going to help make sure that we have that we take care of those people that are angry, that are frustrated, that are scared out there because of the policies that are out there. Folks that that want to make sure they have their Social Security and their Medicare that they've earned and we promised them. People want to make sure they have the health care for their kids that they need to have. I think people want to make sure their future is in front of them, and we need to bring that to them. I think you endorse me because of trust. I think people have been trusting me for years, whether it's been parents trusting me with their kids in the classroom, on athletic fields. Kids learn to trust me and they thrive. My players learn to trust me and they experience great success. My employees, my customers, my vendors, thousands of people trust what I do out there. And I think I don't take that lightly. That's an important responsibility. It's very humbling for me. I want to bring that sense of trust, that sense of responsibility, that sense of understanding to Congress. Last thing I want to say really quick before you cut me off. You endorse me because I'm going to make your jobs easier. I'm going to go shake things up in Washington, D.C., in this district, in this state, and you're going to have lots to write about. And together, we can go build a better America with a strong free press, and God bless you for the work you do. You push back on me when I'm out of line. You support me when I'm doing good work. But at the end of the day, we'll build a better America together, and we can bring back to this country again the hope that we want to have instead of the fear that's out there, the truth that we want to have instead of the lies that are out there, the love that we want to have instead of the hate that's being peddled out there, and make this a peaceful country again. That's why you endorse me. That's why they'll vote for me in June and again in November. Together we're going to build a better America. Thanks, Cathy.
All right. Eddie Mauro, thank you for your time. The two other Democrats who are running in the contested primary in Iowa's 3rd Congressional District have also met with the Register editors and staff. And we're also meeting with the 6 Democrats and the Libertarian candidates running for governor. You can watch the videos from all of those meetings that we've already had and see the schedule for the remaining meetings on DesMoinesRegister.com, and also all the news about the primary race and the general election. And don't forget to vote on June 5th.